Dun, 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 dun. Hey baby, I hear the blues are calling. Strike your star and his friend Martin.
Quiet,
And
Stan.
maybe and maybe you seem a bit confused, but baby, there's a 15-minute Diddy Kong video to watch after this. But I don't know what to do with Striker Star and his friend Martin. Recording again. Frasier retrospectives all over my face. What is a boy to do? Oh boy, all right. Well, I don't know how
Tremendous.
that'll
Well
go.
done.
Thank
I,
you.
I salute the. I don't know if you had that prepared or if it was just off the top of your
Kind of.
head.
I had to
Very good.
improv a bit. It went better than the. Did I do one? No, it was around Thanksgiving. I had to do another one.
It's good stuff.
Welcome to this year's Striker Star Christmas special. As the holidays get busy, I was hoping to do something that involved a little less scripting and maybe try out some new editing tricks. So my friend Martin was kind enough to hop on because we're both such huge fans of Frasier. In fact, one of my most viewed video essays is probably my first proper one, and it's about Frasier. That one, there's editing tricks that I would not use today, and it's hard not to look back at your old work and be like, but it's good context if you'll watch that one before hopping over to this one, because I'm sure, given the notoriety of that video, people are wondering what I think of the reboot. At the risk of assuming too much about my own status on YouTube, and serendipitously as well, you can hop over to kind of our collaborative sister channel, the Animates, where we have reviewed a handful of Kelsey Grammer starring Christmas specials.
It's
Those
been a
being
very, very Kelsey Grammer Christmas for all of us.
yes. If you can't get enough of Kelsey Grammer, then by all means, watch that after this, or pause this, watch that, and come back and watch this. Please watch both, though. Give the views for Christmas. Yeah. So the Frasier reboot happened this year, and I was like kind of in morbid nitpick mode, like, oh, this will be a good thing to make a video about. I can't wait to like pick it apart and talk about, use it as an excuse to at least talk about why old Frasier is still terrific. And then it came out, and I wasn't hating the first episode. And the buzz on the internet just gradually started to be, hey, new Frasier good? And I think we both came out of this feeling surprisingly positive about 2023 Frasier.
Yeah, I think the phrase I kept using to you throughout the series was surprisingly decent, because
Yeah.
I think we were both sort of dreading it, weren't we? And we'd had discussions about it, and there was a point where you were like, is it even happening? We've heard nothing about it.
Right.
And then like literally the next day, the first trailer came out and we were like, oh. And I don't remember being hugely positive after that first trailer. And
No.
we were still a bit sort of, oh, it's going to be terrible, isn't it? We were very much dreading it. And then I think we both got to that first episode and we messaged each other after, and we were like, it was all right.
Yeah.
My God, you haven't aged a day.
And you? Well, thanks for coming to pick me up.
To the point that, like, I think the finale both, like, won us over rather well. Like, we were both like, not bad at all. Golly. I think, like, the big kiss of death that had our guards up was the fact that it seemed as though nobody wanted to come back. You've got John Mahoney, who is too dead to return, unfortunately. David Hyde Pierce, I think, just has better things to do. And I don't know necessarily if there's any big reason Jane Leaves isn't there, but
I did read the other week that she was asked to return, and she said, I'll return for $1 million an episode. And they said no.
I mean, who could blame her? She's like, it's like any of them deserve that much money given
Hmm.
like Frasier, I feel is it's my favorite sitcom. I just did my top 100 TV shows for 1,000 subscribers, and I think Frasier landed right at number 3. I think it's such a brilliant show, and I think the cast is no small part of that. And their absence was like even if they could come back, it wouldn't be recapturing the same lightning in a bottle. But there is just this delicate balance of like Frasier is the verbal comedy, David Hyde Pierce is the physical comedy, and the personalities all played off each other. That's like if you're gonna do a whole new cast, it's not gonna be Frasier without Niles, Marty, Daphne, and Roz all in tow.
And
But
literally
we do.
any
Sorry.
any combination of that cast in the classic series led to a good episode.
Oh, completely. It
You
is.
could stick any character with any other character, and you'd be like, "Oh, this is fun."
Oh yeah. And it's so great too how it's like you'll kind of find yourself like, oh, I don't really know what Niles and Ross think of each other, but they find little ways to show you. He takes little jabs at her here and there.
Everyone has such a well-defined relationship to one another. Like even in the first series, it doesn't even take them a couple of seasons to find that. It's very ingrained from like the first couple of episodes. Replacing that cast was always going to be the biggest challenge.
Right. And I think what also really works about it is that I think it'd be very easy to because Frasier is a show about generations not seeing eye to eye. Like at its core, it's Frasier and Marty just not getting each other because they grew up in such different surroundings. And it'd be so very easy to be like Frasier and Niles are on this side, and Roz and Marty are on this side of like the hoity-toity and the more uh the looser. But it's really like everyone is in their own strange quadrant, and it's never like, oh, you'd think Roz and Marty would get each other. They have their own like weird misgivings where Marty doesn't really get like Roz and her lifestyle, and then Daphne is in like a complete other outer space. I think that's what works really well about it.
Yeah, everyone is such a delightful weirdo in their own sort of special way, aren't they? They're all a little unhinged in certain ways.
I was watching a few more of the Christmas episodes before we hopped on, and there's an amazing because it's the one where Daphne is on the verge of finding out Niall's feelings for her, and she and Roz are talking about it, and Roz is like, "Well, you just have to be straightforward and let him down easy," and Daphne goes, "I can't do that. You know what happens when you tell a man no?" And Roz is just like, "Right." God, so fucking good. And, I think given our praise for the old cast, I think it's once you accept the new cast won't be the old cast, it's easier to like them and they take some getting used to, but I think they pretty much largely come into their own in the reboot.
Some of them, I think.
Yeah.
I have very mixed
There's
feelings.
one that I haven't fully come around on, and I think we're probably thinking of the same one.
I think we probably are, yes.
Should we get that elephant in the room out of the way first?
I took a sleeping pill on the flight for my anxiety, and I had to balance it out with espresso. So I am feeling amazing. I'm feeling so good.
I can't stand David.
No.
It's Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory, and
Right.
someone has sat there and gone, hey, that was a good character in that show. Let's just have that character. And they just tossed him into this world.
And the uncanny thing.
I don't know,
Sorry.
he's not as like scathing and as quick-witted as perhaps Sheldon is, but he's like the performance is very similar.
Mm-hmm.
And he really feels out of place to me amongst the other characters.
It's because he's supposed to be a Niles stand-in. He's Niles and Daphne's son. So of course he's David Crane, most probably named after David Hyde Pierce. And they found a kid who looks enough kind of like David Hyde Pierce, But you're absolutely correct that they seem to be taking like the wrong lessons from Niles and his like popularity, because he does seem like this uncanny Niles by way of Sheldon, exactly as you put it. And people, I think, forgot the Niles. Man, you're exact. I put it like Niles and I guess Sheldon both are like kind of mean at their core. Like
Yeah.
Niles says some like unforgivable shit to Roz at times, and David is just like this soy boy who like does what everyone tells him. Whereas I feel with Niles, he he could be a submissive character, but it was always for something that he felt strongly about. I think people remember him as like the more beta Crane brother, for lack of a better term. But
Yeah.
actually, I think he was very in touch with his own desires and what he wanted. And it's that often came in the form of approval from others. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he was very assertive in like his own way and very confident in himself. Like he sometimes has moments where that's like undermined, like as you say, when he's sort of trying to seek approval from somebody else. But
Hmm.
he's quite like a confident, outgoing character in his own way. And his son is, I guess, his son doesn't have to be exactly the same as him, but it's as if
Hmm.
they were trying to replicate that magic, and as you say, they kind of forgot what made Niles work as a character. Um,
Yeah.
and he's, um, I also don't think he would have turned out quite like this with Daphne as his mother. I think
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
I think it's a bit of a misjudged characterization of what their son would be. Um, as Daphne's mother used to say, there'll be no there'll be no Sheldon Cooper in hell.
Right.
Enjoy it while you can. There'll be no Frasier reboot in hell.
You're exactly right. I'm trying to think. Yeah, a Niles and Daphne son. I think that's more like I'm trying to think of what that would even resemble. I think that would be the more like weird avant-artist character that Eve kind of sort of almost is sometimes.
Yeah,
Like
it's
much,
almost like you need the like Daphne's sort of weirdness combined with Niles like snootiness almost
yeah.
like you say, a sort of like avant-garde artist, like creative type or something. Like a yeah, like she's an actress, isn't she? I feel like that would have been a good approximation for both Niles and Daphne, something like that.
Absolutely. Because like, like imagining, I don't know, their home life. It would be Daphne saying she's psychic, and I imagine David scoffing at it with Niles every time, whereas it needs to be more in the middle. I think you're correct.
But that's the only one I sort of strongly the one I feel sort of strongly doesn't belong in the
Hmm.
cast. I don't know. Do we want to move on to characters immediately or
I guess while we're here, we mentioned
cycle
Eve.
through?
We could follow up, kind of cycle through, follow up, because like, and she's good to kind of ping pong off of David with, because whenever I look at Reddit and whatever, perhaps my first mistake, she's the big one that people aren't warming to, surprisingly.
I think she's fine, but I'm not sure she contributes a huge amount. She's the one who feels the most superfluous to the cast, I think.
I think what she brings that is because she kind of because I think again another no small aspect of Frasier in the first place is kind of aping on the arts. And there's the occasional episode where Frasier and Niles both walk into their apartment and taking off their coats and talking shit about some stupid production they just saw that was clearly the writers like taking out their frustration of seeing a stupid play or an avant piece they didn't like. So you have Eve kind of being the vehicle for that because she's a working actor in Boston and you see her stupid like dinner theater mysteries.
She's almost like I feel like you had in the original series, you had Martin and Roz, who were the more grounded people amongst the cast, who would like call
Mm-hmm.
people on their craziness and be
Yeah.
like more down to earth. And I guess in this you've got both Eve and Freddy. Like Freddy is kind of like he's the Martin surrogate in many ways, which I guess we'll get to when we talk about Freddy. But
Yeah.
Eve also feels like kind of a Martin surrogate as well, and she's
Yeah.
also fulfilling that role. So I don't know. I think she's fine as a character. I like her, but I don't feel like they really gave her very much to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'd love if Frasier got like involved in her acting stuff. Like that seems like it would be a really fun little plot line for Frasier to try and like get involved or become her agent or something, or
That'd be amazing.
maybe
yeah.
BB becomes her agent and that's how BB comes back. Like Frasier puts her in touch with his agent to get her some work, and that's how BB returns.
Right. Oh my God, that actually sounds. Is BB's actress like still doing work? Is there a status there?
I think so. Yeah, she's still working. She's still with us. She still looks pretty much exactly the same. So
You know, I don't think BB the character. They could absolutely make a joke that BB the character made like a blood pact to stay in her 40s forever.
I think there's definitely a gold mine of potential BB material when like she finds out Frasier gave up his lucrative TV show and went off. She'd be like furious and trying to get him back on the TV and stuff.
Golly. Yeah, the TV aspect. I guess that's something we'll touch on in a second. They stick the landing with that when it could have been kind of a fumble. But because you know the plot is Frasier in the years between Frasier ending and this reboot starting. Frasier was on TV. He was basically Dr. Phil, and he comes home to Boston. He meets up with a bunch of people that were supposed to have known all these years, but have never existed. Like an old college buddy, Alan Cornwall.
When I told him I wanted to spend more time with him, he said no.
Have you considered that he hates you?
I guess that takes us to him. Do you remember his actor's name?
Nicholas Lyndhurst, and
Mhm.
he's I don't know. Have you ever seen him in anything else?
Is he like on what, like Blackadder and stuff?
Was he in Blackadder? No, he wasn't. He was in a show called Only Fools and Horses, which is like a big UK thing. I've never been a fan of Only Fools and Horses, but it's like the most beloved UK sitcom of all time. It was like I think it was like late 80s, early 90s. It went on for like a good, well over a decade, but one of those shows that doesn't have as many episodes as you think, but they did lots of specials and stuff. So he was like the sidekick of the main character in that. Very different to his performance in this. I think he should be remembered for the other British sitcom he did, which was a show called Goodnight Sweetheart, in which he played a man who found a portal back to blitz-torn World War II London. And he would travel back in time and he would pick stuff up in the past and take it to his antique shop in the present. And he formed a romance with a barmaid who worked, it was all during the war. It's like wartime stuff. He pretended to be a secret agent when he went to the past. So he had this really exciting past life where everyone loved him. And then he'd go back to the present and he was like really miserable with his wife. And who he was cheating on with this woman in the past. It was a very convoluted show at times, but it was really good. It was really interesting. And that's what I mostly remember him from, his fine performance in that series. A really conflicted the two sides of this character. He was great in that. He's been in loads of other stuff as well.
Yeah. He seemed vaguely familiar, and I kind of felt I was like, oh, he's in that family of like Father Ted, Blackadder, British sitcoms, that are like that have like 5 episodes, and you're always kind of surprised at that.
Yeah. I think I don't like, I said this to you, I think at the time, I don't like British people in American sitcoms because I find it weird. I don't think they should be there. It always weirds me out a bit. Catherine Tate in The Office ruined it for me. Got nothing against Catherine Tate, but I was like, you shouldn't be here. And I just, as soon as I saw him show up with that accent, which isn't how he talks in real life, I was like, No, he's got a much more like normal sort of London type accent. He doesn't speak in that sort of upper class type way. That's a voice he's putting on for this. And I think that he's fine. He really did grow on me towards the end, to be honest. And despite me just being uncomfortable with this random British professor being part of the cast, I thought he ends up with a lot of the funniest lines. He delivers some fantastic, like usually about him being drunk. He just delivers some great little asides. The episode where Lilith returns and can't remember who he is in particular, I think he's excellent throughout the whole episode.
He's pissed off that because he was apparently in attendance at Frasier and Lilith's wedding, and he's like incensed that Lilith doesn't remember him.
Yeah.
Until he makes a drunken ass of himself as the night goes on.
He's like, I remember who you are. You
Yeah.
said you would apologize and you would just go to the car to get your wallet and pay us back every penny. And he's like,
Yeah.
Lilith, I am so happy you remembered me. I will pay you back. Let me just go to the car. And he just disappears again. It's a really like, it was a really obvious joke, but it just really made me laugh.
He's pretty good. Yeah, he is like, it does feel a bit like he's probably like the most easily identifiable as a jerk that a Frasier ensemble member has ever been. Like,
Yeah.
barred probably Bulldog, but he's more consistent than Bulldog, where I'm a little like, why is Frasier even still friends with this guy?
I love
But like,
he has a
sorry.
there's a fantastic moment in the Christmas episode with him, which just sort of summed up like how he's not a particularly good person, where they're like, it's after Frasier has been upset and he leaves and everyone's clearing up. And Alan walks into the kitchen and he's just got a couple of plates and he's like, oh, how's your father? Oh, he's fine. Oh, good. Then I don't have to wash up out of guilt. And he just dumps the plates and leaves.
I think my favorite of his was there's the episode where Eve is hosting bar trivia and she like announces, she goes, welcome to bar trivia, and just as a disclaimer, oh, that's sweet, but I'm busy that weekend, like to all the drunks in the bar. And Alan is like incensed that he feels he was wrongfully jilted out of points, and he comes up, he's like, Eve, I'd like a word, and she immediately just goes, oh, that's sweet, but I'm busy this weekend. And Alan just immediately goes, oh, you wish. Look, and he does have, sorry.
I love how they've committed to what a drunk he is and how he's just constantly drinking. That scene where like David has removed all of the booze from his office and he's just opening all these secret compartments and there's nothing there.
I guess, and like, cause I do think that his big contrast with Frasier is that Frasier is the most like overthinking type A person you can fathom. And Alan, his friend, is someone who like you could not pay to give less of a shit. Just always drunk on the job, but also still having, but you can see how he gets along with Frasier in that he has the same confidence that he can like tailor things to his favor after the fact.
He has a great line where he's describing his job. He just doesn't do any work at all. And he describes it as a soul-crushing 8-hour week, which is a phrase that's just stuck with me since.
Oh, he's great. And he has a cohort at the school. Do you remember her name off the top of your head? Because I unfortunately don't.
Long gone are the years where unearned professor titles are just handed out to any Tom, Dick, or Alan.
I looked it up just before because I couldn't remember what her name was. Bear with me. It is Olivia.
Olivia, thank you. And I think I feel a little torn about her because I think she has really good chemistry. Like she feels like she belongs in Frasier, but kind of like Eve, I don't always feel like she has a lot to do, and she feels a little bit pushed off to the side here and there.
I think it's because they insist in putting her into every episode. And trying to always give her something to do. I think they should she should be like a Kenny or a Bulldog or a Gil.
I was gonna say she should be more like Kenny, yeah.
Just have her show up and make her turn up when it's funny to have her turn up. Like, don't feel obliged to put her in every scene.
Yeah.
But I do like her again. Like, there's no one that I like direct a lot of venom to on this cast, even if I don't always feel like they can be a bit superfluous. I did enjoy her little arc in the final episode, the Christmas episode, where she has like a bit of a romance with Freddy's friend Moose.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. I thought that was quite a fun way of just like putting two of the supporting characters together.
Absolutely, yeah, it was very cute, and I do, and who's my triathlon? I guess, yeah, it's a little hard to like sum her up as like she starts out. She's almost kind of BB Cross Roz a little bit in that she almost comes off a bit sycophantic to Frasier, but you learn she's like a bit of a step ahead and playing it towards her advantage as, with her position of needing to hire prestigious psychiatrists and such.
Yeah.
So I do think kind of moving her towards, as rarely as, a romantic subplot is the cure to anything, I think her and Moose is almost like a weird romantic equivalent of the cultural strangers theming of Frasier, and I think it works out pretty well.
Yeah, it was the surprise sort of hit of the season to me that I never would have seen come in, and I was like, "Oh, that works!" Like it's just, it's another great Frasier odd couple, which maybe it'll go somewhere, and maybe it won't. But I thought it was a nice little tying together of a couple of background characters. Well, she's a main cast member, but she feels more like a background character.
Yeah, and that's, I think, yeah, I do. That's kind of the folly you face with her. But I think, season one of any show, it's hard to come into their own. And again, it's impossible not to compare this cast to the old ensemble that, makes some of them feel a bit looser and a bit undercooked. But I think that the fact that most of them do stick the landing pretty well, I think is a testament to that. I think they're only going to come into their own more. Assuming the reboot carries on, I think it almost definitely will. I don't know if there's been an announcement.
I don't think there has at the time that we are recording this, but I feel like it's done pretty well and that it'll keep going.
Yeah.
Kelsey Grammer certainly seems like he wants to keep making them, and he wants to keep trying to get some of those old cast members back. So
he got two big ones. But that might be getting a little, because the season opened.
I would say three. Oh yeah.
Because Lilith and Roz and
the dancing Santa Claus.
Oh. I see.
That dancing Santa Claus appeared in several episodes of Frasier, and in my mind, is a recurring character.
The main in the way Seattle is a character in Frasier, so is the dancing Santa Claus.
Precisely, yes.
There's callbacks
to Niles on a phone call in the episode as well, and a Niles text, which I was like waiting with bated breath for, like, maybe it would cut to David Hyde Pierce just like doing a phone call, and they just filmed him like between other projects that he was doing at the time, and that was the most they'd gotten for him. Which
I could see like, we're FaceTiming Niles, and like he's just on the other end looking completely on another planet.
Yeah, it's just staring through. But we don't get that. But maybe one day if the show continues.
Yeah. The show opens with a few callbacks to old characters, also addressing their status. It is kind of a good segue into Freddy, because we learned that what prompts Frasier to visit Freddy is that he was absent from Martin's funeral. Did I recall correctly? Is that it?
I believe that is correct, yes.
Yeah. Who in tribute to the late John Mahoney, who died a few years ago in real life, and was, of course, like, again, no small part of what made Frasier work. He's just like a word on Martin, just one of the best sitcom dads ever, in that I think just like the charm of him is that he was always the wisest person in the room. but it never felt like, I'm trying to put this into words because I think as big fans of Frasier, there's something to an extent where we both relate to Frasier, not necessarily in the snootiness, but in feeling a little out of step with maybe our families. Like if Frasier was super into cartoons and action figures instead of opera, Martin would find it just as weird. And that's how I feel I stand out with my family a bit. I don't know if you share that experience.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of that. I think Frasier has so many like neuroses himself that you
Yes.
always identify with at least a few of them.
hmm
Um,
And Marty would be in opposition of those, but he never, and he would even be openly like counter to them, but it was never like, oh, he's the antagonist or I'm so mad at him right now. He always felt soundly where he was supposed to be. He always had the best advice. But even he could be very like childish and has these like, he's very particular. He is still his son's father.
oh, absolutely, yeah. And John Mahoney, like, just a fantastic actor, just in general. Like, I think all the big, weighty, dramatic moments of Frasier,
hmm
not all of them, but I think the most sort of weighty, dramatic acting on the series comes from John Mahoney.
Uh-huh.
Like, he can really go from like very silly to very serious.
Oh yeah.
And he does like a lot of really good emotional acting, which I think Kelsey Grammer is also really good at. But I think John
hmm
Mahoney is like, I'd maybe describe him as like the best actor in the series. I think he's great.
Oh, I would be inclined to agree. Yeah. I was surprised rewatching old like how much of the screen time is just like Frasier and Marty having just like genuine shouting matches to the point that sometimes it could be a bit gutting. And even if they were arguing over something stupid, you would kind of believe it.
Yeah, there's a few that I don't like watching because sometimes it's
Uh,
just like you feel like you're in the room and you're trying to edge out as they're having this big
uh,
argument, and I'm like, um, there's like some of them are the arguments are just ridiculous sometimes though, aren't they? Like the where like he's convinced that Martin is just like passive aggressively doing stuff around the apartment to annoy him, and he spills all the oil all over the floor when he's trying to like particularly fix the chair that's been squeaking, that's been annoying Frasier. And Frasier's like, there are no accidents. And he's like, yes, there are. That was an accident. This is malicious. Well, if you don't like it, you can set it on fire and throw it over the balcony.
Golly, yeah. Um, I think their dynamic more than Frasier and Niles is what made Frasier.
Hmm.
So, and I think it was pretty clear from the onset that the opening episode was kind of passing the torch from Marty to Freddie, in that he was going to be a little more the grounded one and kind of be clashing with Frasier. And there's aspects where I feel they under deliver a bit, but parts where they handle the emotional core of their relationship way better than I ever would have anticipated the reboot would have been capable of.
I think so. I think it was such a good decision to just like mirror that relationship, and say Frasier is the father now and he's reconnecting with his son. I think that was like absolutely it's a very I'm giving him too much credit that I'm sitting here and going it's genius. But it's like I think that is such a good way for them to have gone, and it worked very well.
100%. There is, I suppose we learn that, and they go with Frasier being, I mean, sorry, not Frasier, Freddie becoming a firefighter as kind of a parallel to Marty being a cop, and and that could have just been real easy, like, well, A is A and B is B, like makes sense laterally, but they play really well with Frasier's frustration with the fact that the people close to him that he's loved have always had a profession of putting their life in danger. And Frasier, he's exhausted by having to take care of people post injury and put people up that way. But he's also just genuinely very worried about them because he does, have all that genuine affection. And I think they make a really good move in exploring how hard that's been for him, having, his father was shot in the waist and handicapped for life, and his son puts his life at risk saving people from fires every day. And that just gets to weigh on someone after a while.
Yeah, it's a nice echoing of like all the relationships that he has in the original show. And just the way that Frasier's like anxieties and neuroses always like bubble over and just end up exploding out of him.
Oh yeah.
In moments of like high emotion. So I don't know if you could have done this show if they'd had Freddie. Like my mom started watching this show because my parents are big fans of Frasier as well. And I was talking to them about it, and my mom was like quite annoyed that they hadn't kept Freddie sort of in character as he was in the original show, like maybe a bit more sort of nerdy and intellectual and having a bit more in common with Frasier. And she was like, I don't think he would have turned out like this. And I was like,
right.
It's a very difficult upbringing, Mom. A lot of things have happened to him in the last 20 years.
And Freddie, for like, I don't feel he transformed a lot too. I think that because he would be gone for years at a time, when he would show up, he would be a bit malleable to years. Like there's the one where he shows up and he's just like goth. Yeah. So you can assume he's had a few stages here and there.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you've got like Frasier and Lilith as your parents as well, like I'd argue Lilith is more of a weirdo than Frasier.
Probably.
She's maybe a bit more grounded in reality at times than Frasier is. Like they're both two very odd, highly strung people. And I don't think either of them are bad parents. But I think if you had those two as parents, you'd probably grow up being a bit weird. Or you would have rebelled and gone like the opposite direction. So
you would have to explore a lot. Yeah, you'd be restricted. Yeah. I think the best reflection of their family dynamic is when they're all three in a room at Freddie's birthday, and Alan shows up in this ridiculous outfit to remind Lilith of how he was dressed at their wedding.
His John Hammond from Jurassic Park.
Yeah, his John Hammond fit. His Paul Giamatti in Jungle Cruise chic.
Yeah. I love how they just rattle off loads of jokes about his outfit.
Exactly, because
one of them is just Frasier going, no, Frederick, don't talk that way to the man who invented Jurassic Park.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to disappoint the supervillain who tried to kill James Bond. But they're all like together in a line, and I think it's like literally the one moment of the episode they're kind of on the same page, is that they kind of just love to roast people. And I think that's like the kind of the secret Crane family rite of passage, is that if they mercilessly make fun of you, you're kind of, part of that bond. And if you can do it together, they have like a slightly different flavor of razzing somebody else, but they all really get a kick out of it. I thought that was so excellent.
I think one thing the show does very well as well is that it doesn't, you can tell it's been written by people who have actually watched Frasier. And there's so many like little callbacks to bits and pieces of the history of like particularly Freddie. They call back to like his goth phase at one point.
Oh yeah.
Frasier mentions, like, he reels off a list of how his disastrous dinner parties have gone over the years, and he's like, there have been many things that have led to the downfall of a Crane dinner party in the past. A seal, a corpse. I can't remember what the other ones were.
No, yeah, I was like, they do remember, yeah. I do think there's like, I think a throwaway line of like, and believe me, Freddie and I took many trips around that time to a store called Hot Topic. Like, something to that effect, I think, was in there.
I wonder if Freddie still got his what's the toy called? The Robo Geek that he gets in one of the
superpower Robo Geek or something.
Something like that. Yeah.
I'd love if they called back to that. Yeah. That might be my favorite episode of original Frasier.
It's a great one.
Oh, it is so
it's the
good.
Outlaw Laser Robo Geek is what it's called.
Yeah. Just mashing words together to make it sound like the thing Frasier would fucking hate more than anything.
Have you seen the prop of the Outlaw Laser Robo Geek?
When I was watching the episode, I was like, oh, they're conveniently not really show. I was wondering if it was just like a generic box. Is there a prop?
They did a prop for it because I looked this up, and someone was
Oh.
selling it at an auction online where they sell like props and stuff from TV shows. And I found
Uh-huh.
it, and it was the it was the Robo Geek, and it's like got the head of Godzilla. It looks like a sort of mecha Godzilla to me. It's like this big silver thing. It looks pretty cool.
Oh, I think I found it. Yeah, it's like got a big like giraffe head,
Yeah,
kind of. My God, Thor with just all these like gibberish names on it. I'm saving this JPEG to put in the video right now.
gotta read that up.
There we go, so I don't lose it. Man, that episode is so good. And a big reason we wanted this to be the Christmas video is that Frasier Christmas specials tend to be some of the best ones. There's that one, and also Perspectives on Christmas, I think are the two absolutely brilliant Christmas specials of any sitcom. And
Yeah.
there's many others that are great and in tow, but those are the two big ones I think of that I watch almost every year, I feel like, kind of in a little double feature.
Yeah, I've been through. We were talking about this recently, but I said to you that I don't like watching Christmas specials when it's not Christmas. I always skip them in my rewatches, and in my Frasier rewatches over, I'd say, the past 10 years, I've never done them to coincide with Christmas. So I basically skipped all the Frasier Christmas episodes for about 10 years, and I think some of them perhaps I'd never even watched. I think the RoboGeek one in particular, I had no memory of it when I went round to watch it. I must have watched it at the time,
Yeah.
and in the past, but it was completely new to me as an episode. So when I went through, I was like, "Oh, new Frasier!"
Yeah.
It was all very fresh. So I did like all the Frasier Christmas episodes more or less back to back, and then the reboot one came pretty much at the end of that, like a week after I'd done them all. So it's a very Kelsey Grammer Christmas. I've been exposed to more Kelsey Grammer in the past 2 months than I have in my entire existence, I would say.
I think now that we kind of say it out, I don't think anyone's done a definitive well, I'm sure it's out there, but I feel like this kind of sets we need to do like a Sideshow Bob retrospective, I feel, as a follow-up to this at some point.
We've got 25 seasons of that now, though.
Yeah,
how many are we gonna have to watch?
Golly.
We're on season 30 now.
And yeah, they tried to put him in at least like once a season, is it?
Yeah.
I don't know about. Yeah. Golly. Man, yeah, no, crazy shit. Man. I lost my train of thought a little, I'm sorry. But yeah, no, because the Outlaw Laser Robo Geek episode is like I'm very drawn to the plot of like I think it's a very easy adventure of like, oh, we need to get the coveted toy that I waited too long to get. Like Justice League has that with the Flash. And I find, it's an easy way to have materials aren't everything story. But Frasier adds this special sauce in that what is keen essentially his character is that he always means well, but his well-meaning stems from being kind of self-centered. And he thinks he knows best, even if he does mean well. So he has to learn that as a gift giver, he can't just think about what he thinks other people should want. And Marty kind of has to bring him down to earth. The best punchline in the episode, I think, is there's this runner that Niles' accounts are all dried up, but Maris cut him off in the midst of their marriage tribulations. And there's this jerk at the store who has the toy Frasier wants to get for Freddie. And he's like, it's the last one, but I'll give it to you for $500. And Frasier's like, fine. Niles, write the man a check.
Yeah, gets the last laugh on the Christmas scalper.
Yeah.
I also love
so
the whole
good.
scene where they're in the store and Niles has got like the the helmet on with the weird little goggles and the spray at the side.
Yeah.
And he's like, "What's it doing now? It's beeping. What's it doing now? It's flashing. What's it doing now?" And then he's just like, "I wonder if it protects you from being hit across the head." And he just smacks him, and he just goes down onto the floor.
So fucking good. No matter how like intelligent and wealthy Frasier and Niles are, they're just two bickering children ultimately.
Another great scene of just David Hyde Pierce like collapsing to the floor
Yeah.
after taking like some physical abuse, which another one of those in Perspectives on Christmas.
Yes. Where he's stuck in the elevator with a few other people. And is it his tree or someone else who has the tree? It was
I think it's someone else's tree.
yeah.
I sent you a screenshot of one of the people in the elevator and said, "This is my new favorite Frasier character."
Yeah.
And it's just this really like morose, cynical guy and his wife.
He strikes me like his job is like risk analyst or something.
Yeah, there's a bit where Niles says to him, there's a chemical now that'll stop them from stop those trees catching fire." And the guy says to him, "It causes cancer." like that. And he's like, "No." And then he's like, "There's a woman in there. Oh my God, my kids are upstairs. You haven't left the oven on, have you?" He's like such a like this dour like serial killer-esque tone.
Yeah.
And I was disappointed to find he never shows up in any other episodes.
It's a bummer. Well, and like it ends with a more amazing physical comedy from David Hyde Pierce, where he's like dragging himself across the floor covered in pine needles, and two people just walk by and like, "What's his deal?" "Oh, he's Dr. Crane's brother."
Yeah. "Surely you climbed trees as a boy?" "That's Dr. Crane's brother." "Oh."
There is like I feel like people don't talk enough about if you can track throughout the series that nobody actually really likes Frasier and Niles, or there's a bit of a like they're relatively popular in their own circles, but like their neighbors and everyday people think they're complete like freaks.
I love how much like Frasier ends up being just despised by all the people in his
Yeah.
building, and all he's trying to do. It's like the one where he's arguing with Cam Winston over the flag, and the entire crowd just turns on him. "Maybe if more people were like Cam Winston and less people were like you, this country would be a better place. Why don't you move to Iraq?" "Yes, move to Iraq." And they all just start booing him, and he's like backing out of the room slowly.
Golly, man, I like that. There's the dinner party one where there's someone going, "Well, well, you know about the Crane brothers, if you invite one, you get that other one."
That's what they say about us.
Yeah, you know what they say about the anime.
You invite the one, you get that other one.
Oh man,
"I am the one, and you are that other one."
and it's perfect that you can perfectly imagine it being either one.
Yeah, I think my theory has always been that Frasier was the one and Niles was the other one, but it could
Man.
easily be the other way around.
It could, yes. I almost feel like that's like too easy. That like Niles is obviously weirder, but maybe like behind the scenes he's done something really nice.
That's another amazing episode as well. That
God,
where they're just blackballing guests.
and it's like it's pretty much a bottle episode where they're just in one place, isn't it?
Yeah, the only like other character I think you see is Marty, who has to keep rearranging his poker games every time.
Yeah.
He just walks back out every so often. They're like, "Dad, you're gonna have to change the date again."
Well, and like I do think that that's an amazing kind of it speaks to the theatrical nature of Frasier, and that I feel like almost every episode would work well as a stage play in that it doesn't go to like a billion locations. There's a few solid sets, and it's usually of an internal conflict where you don't have to go from spot to spot. It's just like a big insecurity that Frasier or Niles or Martin has, and most of the comedy can be done like on the spot.
Yeah.
And I think that's captured, and it's like there's a lot of like faulty towers plots, and it's like you could believe that, oh, Frasier has to keep up a lie that his father is gay or that his whole family is Jewish.
Yeah.
And I think they capture that really well in the reboot. Specifically, there's an episode where Eve sets up Frasier and Freddie with a blind date each, but they can't tell which girl is interested in which man. And it feels very like this feels like it would absolutely be an old episode where it would be like Frasier and Niles trying to figure out which woman is intended for each of them.
My a friend of mine described that episode as lots of classic Frasier kitchen scenes.
Oh yeah.
Which is like a very specific Frasier thing where that kind of episode, there's always a lot of like sporadic can I see you in the kitchen moments where they go into the kitchen and they all vent their frustrations and then they have to walk back out. And that's such like a weird specific Frasier trope. Like they have the big reveal in the kitchen where everyone comes
right,
and they're like
the kitchen where all sound like siphons off and the character who isn't supposed to hear
despite not even having a door. Yeah. There's like you always hear like someone go in there and scream, but you never hear the conversations. Everything all right in there?
There's usually some like prop comedy with like, oh, the goose is almost ready, and they like slam the door to drown out their voices or whatever.
Yeah. Another like perspectives on Christmas, I think I've been thinking as we've been bringing up lots of these points, has like all of that stuff within the episode. It's such like it's like the zenith of all Frasier plot lines is combined into that one Christmas special. So much happens in it.
I love I almost I think maybe the essential Frasier dynamic scene is we're at a point where Roz is pregnant out of wedlock and she doesn't want her mother to know. Frasier's not aware of this and they're sitting in the cafe. Roz's mom calls and Frasier's like, oh, let me say Merry Christmas, and wants the phone from her, and Roz gets up for a sec. Frasier goes, now, Mrs. Doyle, just be aware, Roz has put on some baby weight. Just don't, I wouldn't mention it. She'd feel much better about it. Thank you. Gives the phone back, and Roz is like, I appreciate you listening, Frasier. I'm so stressed out that I haven't even told my mom I'm pregnant yet.
Yeah. And then the phone rings again, and he's like, yes, I thought you might be calling back.
So keen, essentially, Frasier having the best of intentions, but just thinking he knows best a little too much and taking that one extra step he shouldn't.
Yeah. He always, he always means well. He's not a bad person.
But just a little too self-set. And the payoff being fucking Merry Christmas and throwing his box of glasses across the floor.
Just hurling it at the floor.
Oh, man. And you get like there's always a lot of like verbal faulty towers in Farce, which we kind of get in the subplot of Daphne thinking Martin is dying.
That brings together so many like amazing so many like payoffs in Frasier where they'll mention something completely innocuously and it's purely for the purpose of setting up a punchline like 10 minutes later.
Oh yeah. They do an amazing job.
Like in that, it's the man upstairs keeps banging his foot and getting really annoyed that they're practicing the singing because it's disturbing him. And this plays into the Daphne thinks Martin is dying plot line, because later on, one of the comments he makes that makes her more suspicious is, oh, sooner or later I'm going to have to talk to the man upstairs. And she's like, oh my God. And that I was like, oh, they did that purely just so they could make that joke.
Right. They just know exactly what to set up. Like,
all night divine.
Oh,
and
night divine.
That's what's great about Martin too. There is a small runner that like he has like tiny inklings of wanting to be a bit artsy. Like I think maybe my favorite Martin story is the Groovy Baby one. Groovy Lady, sorry. And that's what it reminds me of, is that he has tiny inclinations of like, maybe I'll dip my toes in performing or in songwriting. But he he always gets very scared off by not being like instantly good at it. And whereas Frasier is very well versed in these things, and sometimes it kind of feels like he can be in the driver's seat and teach Martin to believe in himself a bit, even if like in this case it goes disastrously.
Yeah, I do love that moment where Frasier like busts out the Groovy Lady song at the funeral and reveals he's got the whole choir doing it for him.
Yeah.
It's an amazing, nice little touching moment at the end of that one.
Yeah. Man, and golly. So yeah, the blind date episode of the reboot, I think just had all that energy. There's the kitchen talk. I think it's hard to articulate. There's a joke that I think they perfectly perform in that it involves texting, and you could see it being old Frasier if texting were more prominent at the time. In that, the woman that they're trying to figure out which man she's interested, she goes, "Well, I'm just gonna tell my friend that I'm on a date with FR." Oh, it autocorrected.
Yeah.
And Frasier and Freddie are just like,
I think a testament that that episode worked as well is that Kelsey Grammer seems to have barely aged in 20 years. Like,
right.
still...
Well, I don't know if it was to you I said this or somebody else, but I was like, I think Kelsey Grammer is like 80, because I always think of Frasier as perpetually like pitch 40.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a spry 30-year-old like Friends character, but he's not the Golden Girls. He is 40 for all time. And I was like, well, if he was 40 in Frasier originally, he has to be like 80 now, if I'm correct. But it turns out he's only 68 and just like kind of gracefully aging.
I think it's just because he looked much worse at the start of Frasier.
Yeah.
He had that insane hair.
Right.
And like he just dressed really old in the first 2 seasons at least, and in Cheers. Like he always just looked old. And then once he gets his hair cut and he cleans up and he starts wearing these nice suits, he's like perpetually 40 years old from that point on.
Yeah. Because in Cheers, he has to be a little dorkier than like Sam. Like Sam is the heartthrob. And Frasier has his charm, but is kind of a weirdo. But when he steps into being the main character, he kind of has to ugly duckling out of that role into like a leading man that you can believe having a billion girlfriends over the series.
Yeah, well, he's such like a class act in terms of how he dresses and his appreciation of the finer things, that you can't really have like a disheveled, crazy looking Frasier with like big hair that sticks out everywhere, because that's just not who he is. He'd be appalled if he saw somebody with that hair.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Now, does the reboot follow up on the penultimate love interest of Frasier that makes him leave Seattle? Laura Linney's character?
I can't remember if she's been mentioned.
It's not hard to believe that it just kind of went down in flames, but I'm surprised there wasn't at least a throwaway line of Frasier just being like, yeah, it didn't work out. At least not to my recollection. Maybe someone in the comments is going to correct us.
I don't recall it myself. I think like behind the scenes interviews and stuff, Kelsey Grammer has maybe just like, made an offhand, oh yeah, it didn't work out. They broke up or whatever. But we don't know if they got married or how long they stayed together or anything like that, or if they even did get together. I think that's...
I told him, get off your knees, stop begging, I'm already out the door.
And things with Charlotte?
She told me the same thing.
It's all unknown at the moment. Maybe they're planning to bring her back. Who knows?
That'd be crazy. Maybe she died licking stamps on their wedding invitations.
A distinctly un-Frasier-like end to a character.
Yeah. That sounds like how they would like canonically kill off Maris or something.
That's absolutely what would happen to Maris. Some ridiculous thing like that.
She forgot the words to melody. Or memory, damn it.
I forgot the words to memory. She was so embarrassed she just died on the spot.
Man,
it's like it'd be something like she went into a sauna and she just evaporated or something like that. They never found the body.
They fucking oh my god, if the show goes on long enough, there would be just like a Maris funeral and just some absurd shit happen.
Well, she's canonically, Maris is on an island, isn't she, at the end of the series? 'Cause she had to
Yeah,
escape the country. She was
right.
accused of murder, which she did do. So she's a wanted fugitive. Whether she's been absolved of her crimes at this point, we don't know.
She is, in fact, the murderer of Eve's fiance and father of her baby. I don't know.
This seems like a great opportunity for them to cast Maris in some way and have her just randomly appear.
I don't know if it has to be it can't be less than the perfect casting for it to pay off. If it's remotely disappointing, it's gonna piss me off if they do that.
Yeah, it must be very. Who has always been your like mental image of
The teacher from Invader Zim.
I don't know who that is.
I'll throw up a picture of her when I'm editing.
I'm just gonna look at it. Miss Bitters, is that the one?
Yeah, that's her.
Oh, I see. She's too old to be Maris to me.
A little too old.
The
I guess that is the
physique
thing is that Frasier. I mean, Maris is a bit hideous despite not being old per se. She just takes such poor care of herself that she is skinny as all get out.
In my head, she was always like a more emaciated Lilith. Like Lilith.
Yeah.
Like a cartoonishly thin Lilith. Or what's her name? The actress who's in everything. She's not like a Christine Baranski. Always like
yeah.
That was kind of how I pictured her. Like I kept imagining her like that in my mind, but nobody could live up to the bizarre physical
That's the thing.
description.
Like if they were to do off bullshitting here, a Frasier animated special, I'd be like, yeah, Christine Baranski or Jane Krakowski as like a cartoonishly devilish, insane Maris. But I have no idea who could ever look like Maris with any amount of cosmetics or costuming or decorum.
Yeah, you'd have to have it be like a CGI character.
Just put her next to Kelsey Grammer as Beast in the Marvels post credits.
It's like Andy Serkis in like a motion capture suit.
The next step, the next logical step.
But I would be open to them casting somebody as Maris. You could have her turn up and just be like, cast like a really sort of slender actress, but she still keeps making like jokes about how she's like morbidly obese or something now. Everyone's really confused. And Frasier's like, you should have seen it 20 years ago.
Or you could even do it where Time in the Islands just like even her out and she's like astonishingly hot now or something.
Yeah, maybe something like that.
Like I'm trying to think of who it could be. Like some kind of like, I have no idea who that would be at that point. Like
I'm picturing like Angelina Jolie in my head.
Yeah, that's good. And they're like, wow, the Island Sun did wonders, Maris.
With her like Maleficent style cheekbones and makeup.
Yes.
That's how she appears.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Yeah. Like just the right age.
Yeah.
Man.
I wonder if we'll get anybody else.
And as we discussed, we got Lilith, and Roz makes a surprise appearance here. Perry Gilpin, still like, she strikes me like she would just be like Roz in real life. I don't know much about her like public persona or anything, but she doesn't seem like she's even lost a step.
No, she looks like she barely aged. I hate to like the first thing I've said is they look exactly the same, as though that's like that denotes their worth as actors. But like
I wouldn't say they've aged gracefully. All of that is what I
yeah. I think in the age of like the reboot where you see somebody after a certain amount of time, and they look, the passage of time has happened. Sometimes it can be a little jarring because people try and make timelines work in weird ways. But everyone in this looks like, I don't know, they've all aged gracefully, as you say. All aged
and I think
very well.
It speaks to how in touch they are with their character, I think, more than how they've aged or look in any way. Like, I think what more happens is someone will look older as they will, and maybe they just don't have the chops to play the character organically. You know, they don't feel like an aged
Yeah.
version of that character. Maybe they're, I dare say, maybe they phone it in from time to time if they reach a certain age. Not, and I don't say that because I blame them. I say that because I would also struggle to be Indiana Jones north of 80 years old. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially when
Um,
you haven't done it for, 2 decades.
yeah. So, like, Roz and Frasier don't even feel like they've lost a step in that they're such consummate performers, and they feel like those same characters in 20 years have simply passed.
And it's like you can really sort of sense the warmth in that relationship when Roz appears.
Uh,
I wish it hadn't been spoiled for me. They announced like pretty early on, like Roz is in the Christmas episode, and I was like, oh.
mhm.
So I knew it was
And
coming.
they filmed it as if it were a surprise, but even so, the reveal is very, because Frasier is upset. It's a pretty Frasier-esque plot where everyone ends up flocking to a different Christmas party. Eve goes to watch movies on her own because this is her first Christmas without her fiance, who died fighting fires with Freddy. And gradually people kind of start to flock over there because they just like her more casual Christmas of watching movies, and they're taking Frasier's stuff over as well. Frasier doesn't feel great. He misses and it's not even just like a Frasier ego thing. It's him wanting to recapture the Christmas with his dad, who loved Christmas, had the dancing Santa, and that loneliness really comes down on him really hard. And that's when Roz swoops in to kind of save the day, and it's wildly cathartic with all of that context.
Yes. And it's such like a genuine nice moment when they go for their drink afterwards, and Roz is like the person who's there to sort of bring him back down to earth, as Roz so often did. And they have a
I
nice
think she
little reminiscing about Martin as well, which
uh it was very sweet. I love she goes, "Damn it, Frasier." Ah, it feels weird to not have said that for 20 years.
yeah.
She still got it. It was wonderful. And and it is a lot of, again, you can totally understand where Frasier's coming from and why he would feel so lonely and bereft at this time of year. But also he got that he just needs some sense talked into him that he's not the only one hurting and having lost someone, and Roz is the perfect person to provide that anchor.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's really sad, like they really, with very minimal sort of like schmaltzy forced emotion, they really make you feel the loss of John Mahoney as well.
Hmm.
Like the scene where he gets out the dancing Santa Claus and he says that he just misses him. I thought it was
Yeah.
such a sad little moment, and you're like, oh.
It
And
is, yeah.
Frasier
It's a
always does
real.
very well with its sort of tearjerker moments.
Mhm.
Oftentimes John Mahoney involved in them as well, so it feels right that it's that's the sort of the big one of this series, is that moment where he's just sort of sitting alone with his father's Christmas decorations
It's a very
and his
faithful.
23 Christmas
Sorry.
trees. His
Oh
20
yes.
I can't see the forest for the trees.
And it makes me, I was watching one today where Niles is like, "Well, I'm paying my condolences. I'm afraid Maris lost her hedge clipper. He had a heart attack in the middle of massive foliage maze, and the paramedics didn't have a chance."
Oh yeah, dies in the
Something
maze. He's
similar could
got
happen.
Maris. Yeah. I like that
Man,
Maris is inadvertently responsible for so many people's deaths throughout the
I
series.
know. Because is he responsible for punched in the face by a man now dead as well?
Yeah,
Wasn't that like
that's
she killed
well,
him, right?
yeah, she accidentally shoots him with the antique crossbow that Niles
Right.
loans her. She just kills that guy.
Man. Yeah, I guess, yeah, the reboot won't be complete until we have like, I'm sure they'll do some kind of weird return of Maris. Like she's vaguely haunting people or some shit.
We forgot to mention that we've watched so many Christmas carols over the years, and we basically get a Frasier Christmas Carol in this, where Frasier is worried about like metaphorical three Christmas spirits showing up to ruin his party. And it's
Yeah.
like 3 different disasters. One of which is a live goose that's just in his kitchen.
I've got your Christmas goose and just lets it out on a leash.
Yeah. How do you feel about killing the goose? Was my favorite like little moments at the end. Niles
God.
also calls him when the goose is in the kitchen and it honks, and he's like, "Everything's fine, Niles."
Not even at this point, not wanting to give in that his party was not perfect to Niles or somebody.
Yeah. Kelsey Grammer, I guess we haven't really talked much about Frasier himself as a character, like
Mhm.
how he is in the reboot. I guess maybe because
Yeah.
there's not a huge amount to say because it's Kelsey Grammer doing Frasier again, but
I think what they stick the landing with, what kind of gave me concern early on is that he starts like he kind of revolves around starting to teach at Harvard, is it? Because they're in
yes.
Boston. Yeah. And what occurs is he was basically in the interim between this and the old show, he was he was basically Dr. Phil. Like he started off wanting to do a genuine psychiatry TV show, but kind of fell into celebrity and some of the schlockiness, and wants to kind of escape that. And at first I had a hard time buying because like people would show up to his lectures entirely motivated by him being TV therapist Frasier Crane. And he's bothered by this, but my initial reaction was like, Frasier loves attention. What are you talking about? Like, he would give anything to be this recognized. But as it goes on, it shows how distant he got from what he wanted to be known for, and how his radio show was so much more grounded than his TV work turned out to be, where he got to do like a lot of like public stuff and a lot of pandering, frankly, and they stick the landing really well with why he's unhappy with that.
One of my favorite gags is when he's showing Alan the TV show, and he shows him a clip from season 1, and it's basically in line with what the radio show was, where he's giving someone
Mm-hmm.
quite, serious, heartfelt advice. And then he skips ahead and he's like, this was season 14. And it's just this crazy, like really crass, ridiculous daytime talk show. And he's putting on a big thinking cap. And it's like this weird sort of Tudor-esque, like
Right.
beret type thing. And they're all sitting around with their fingers on their lips. And then does he say something about like they're getting I was going to say a chimp. It's the chimp that's in the original series when him and BB do the talk show, but it's something weird like that. And I love
Yeah.
just the comparison between the two, which was like the thing that Niles always derided him for, was sort of selling
Mm-hmm.
out and doing that, which wasn't the case at all in the original series, but that's what ultimately what he became. So I'd love to see if they do get David Hyde Pierce back. It'd be great to see some sort of conversation about that.
Oh, absolutely. And like you were saying, do they mention that BB was like had her hands in that? Because it seemed like a prime opportunity to at least pay lip service to her.
They don't, but she must have done, mustn't she? Because she was she was still his agent at the end of the series. So I assume maybe he doesn't have an agent anymore because he's not doing that sort of stuff anymore.
Right. Yeah.
She'll
It
find a
feels
way to
like
claw her way back.
maybe we're just BB's biggest fans. Maybe she's not as fondly remembered among the rest of the fan base. But it almost feels like just a matter of time before there's something tying BB to the TV show and her return.
I think she's just the perfect one to work in. Because there are
Hmm.
so many ways that you could use her in this show. Like, you can't really bring back a lot of the radio characters because he's like, well, what do you do with them when they turn up? Whereas BB
Right.
can do a lot of stuff, I think, in this. Just randomly have her office down the hall from Frasier and she can work her in. Doesn't matter. I would like to see, I'd like to see like lots of the reoccurring characters at some point.
I have this image inescapable in my mind that if they bring back Kenny, his life is like in shambles. Like
Yeah,
he is
he's never
homeless
doing.
or something.
Yeah, yeah. Frasier just like bumps into him on the street, just
Yeah.
asking for spare change.
Dear God, Kenny.
That could be a nice little arc. Like Kenny just moves in with Frasier and he can't get rid of him.
Yeah.
I'd love to see Gil again.
Gil Chesterton.
Make no mistake, Gil's not about to stop loving the ladies.
If they bring back Bulldog, it'd be so fucking good if like the character turned out to be closeted the whole time because his
Yeah.
actor I think is gay in real life, and you learn that he gave like a genuinely touching Ave Maria at
Yes.
Martin's funeral.
Bulldogs, Ave Maria. Yeah, one of my favorite jokes.
And so I just imagine if there's like a small episode where they meet up down the line and he's just like, I just had a lot of pent up aggression because I was in the closet. He's just like a different person. He's just kind of come in touch with himself.
I think that'd be a fun way to go with him.
Yeah. Man, I guess there is restraint. Like, I feel because it was a bad sign. Like, with every reboot, it's like, obviously, you're going to get as many people as you can. And I think what made us nervous was like, this must be a stinker if they couldn't get people. And it's true that like they wanted Daphne and they wanted Niles, but it seemed more out of those David Hyde Pierce and Jane Leaves themselves having reservations as opposed to like the script utterly repelling them, at least from my point of view. And it seems like they actually have a lot of restraint of like not doing, and this is the Kenny episode, this is the Gil, this is the Bulldog, so on and so forth. And they kind of leave that door open to do it down the line if they have a good idea, though. But it wants to stand on its own, which I really respect.
And it's in a different city completely as well. So these people aren't just going to be walking around. So we're not sort of saddled with well, why doesn't Frasier just go and see this person? Or why isn't he bumping into this guy? Why doesn't he ring, and ask for a favor from all these people that he knows?
Right.
So it's like plausible that you're not going to bump into them and you're not going to see them because people don't if they live in different cities. I've never met you. People aren't just going to walk around into each other's lives all the time and be sitting around having coffee. So
I just now walked past your window like the duplicate Homer, just silently.
Stock footage in the background.
Yeah.
Just on a walk cycle. We haven't mentioned one character, which is Eddie. And I would love an Eddie surrogate to appear. We get a dog, don't we?
We do?
Is the dog at the fire station, I want to say.
Oh, yeah, I vaguely remember that. I guess they don't do a lot with such a dog though, because I don't really remember, honestly.
He's just, I think the dog lives at the fire station. It's just like staring Frasier out.
Yeah, now I remember.
He's like, I've beaten bigger opponents than you, or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
I'd love to see he just gets, because there's been a couple of jokes about why don't I just get up a Jack Russell and a Zimmer frame or something like that. I'd love to see him just get like an Eddie dog, just inherit one at some point and have the same sort of adversarial relationship with it.
Like some relative passes away and somehow in the will it falls to him to take care of like another Jack Russell.
Yeah.
Or I can imagine them like swerving and being like, oh, did you know that I just so happen to have a parrot? His name's Eddie. And he's just like, oh, dear God. Some like wacky animal or something. And yeah, that would tie it together well. Overall, we think Frasier Reboot good. Yeah, thumbs up.
Yeah, it's not original Frasier, but nothing ever will be.
Oh.
I think it's a pleasant watch. It's not as riotously funny as original Frasier, but whatever will be.
Yeah.
So I think in today's landscape of sitcoms, this is one that I'm quite happy to watch, and I'm happy to have more stories about Frasier out there.
Yeah, my mom, and it's like my mom, whenever I'm with my mom visiting her, it's always like, oh, she has the Connors on in the background or the Will and Grace reboot. Whereas I'm like, these are like cute or passable, but I would never go out of my way where I was like, oh, Thursday, Frasier's on for the first time in like years. Man, what are your hopes and expectations for a season 2? Mine is that it opens with David face down in a bathtub, and no one ever speaks of him again.
Oh dear God! The post credits, like the credits of the first episode, is just him face down, and it's just Frasier like cleaning up and disposing of the body while, hey baby, I hear the blues are calling, tossed salads and scrambled eggs.
Eggs. Just
As
picks
he's
up a
dragging
phone.
it.
Freddie, we'll have to have those flowers arranged, you know.
Good night, everybody. No, I don't wish death upon him, but he's the one character I think if they didn't bring him back next season, I'd be very happy. Or swap him out for Niles and Daphne's other child and just do it from scratch. They've got another child, haven't they? Did they have two?
I feel like, yeah. I mean, knowing them, I think it's very in character for them to just like have 10 kids. That's how I imagine them.
Just like another, like a daughter or something that takes maybe more after Daphne and is a bit more crazy.
What if every season was a different spawn of Niles and Daphne
I'd
somehow?
be happy with that, yeah.
And they just get progressively stranger.
One season, like Simon just shows up without explanation. Oh,
now he should die.
Oh, she's moved to Boston.
Now he needs to die. Like, now I think we can agree. The worst character in Frasier canon.
Did
Simon
I tell you
Moon.
my reaction to him? Like, I'd forgotten that he comes back for more episodes after the wedding. And when I was doing my rewatch recently, I think it might have been you that I told this. I hope this isn't in our Christmas animates and I'm redoing the updates.
Maybe.
But there's a scene where he walks in and Niles goes, Simon, and Frasier is walking out of the kitchen and he goes, Simon, and I just went, Simon.
Is there a possibility of an episode that's like a hooded clan of Crane brother adversaries, and it's like Daphne's old Jimmy? Is that Daphne's old fiance? What's his name? I almost called him Eddie,
Donnie?
but that's
Donnie.
That's it's like you have Donnie, Simon,
Mrs. Moon,
Mrs. Moon, Dirty Girl. I can't remember. Maureen, that's her name.
Oh, yeah.
Maureen.
Yo, who's the one? I've completely forgotten her name. The awful woman that Frasier gets together with in the final season, and they leave her to choke to death on a peanut.
Oh my God!
What's
Is
her
that
name?
is she the one? Is she the one who has the son he has to tutor all the time?
No, that's I've forgotten her name as well. She's a different character. It's the one who works at the Julia. It's Julia who works at the radio station, and she's just really obnoxious, and everyone hates her.
There's her. Like, yeah, Julia Wilcox. There we go. I'm on the
Frasier. They literally just leave her to die because
it's Felicity Huffman. Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's in prison. So when she gets out,
there's a couple other characters on the tip of my tongue who are at that table. Who was it?
There's a brilliant he's only in one episode. The evil station manager who's played by John Glover.
Right. I think I know who you mean.
And he just gets fired in that same episode he appears in. And he turns to Frasier and he's like, I wish I'd fired you when I had the chance.
Oh my God. A lot of enemies, a lot of rogues gallery of Frasier.
You could easily put Cam Winston back in there, I think.
Yeah.
He just moves in just above Frasier or something again.
Well, as much as we're joking, there could so easily be a league of people who are traumatized by their interactions with Frasier, and they have an AA group, and that'd be Frasier's worst nightmare of something that exists.
Yeah, it's
the people united by the fact that they can't stand him.
Tony Shalhoub, after he is on the focus group, and he says he doesn't like Frasier, and Frasier ends up just burning down his livelihood. What specifically is it you don't like about me?
Who's the lady that Niles is with when Daphne's with Donnie? Mel? That's her name.
Mel, yeah.
She could be there.
Mel is always kind of like a mental image I've had for Maris as well. I think
Yeah.
that was the intention, I guess. But
Yeah. Niles is a very specific type.
yeah, I like Niles is like bad girl punk girlfriend that he gets like that one episode.
Right. I remember. Yeah, yeah. Man. Well, you know what? If you're interested in this idea, Paramount, call us up. We'll punch up the script. We're the only ones who remember these characters, and it's all led by BB, who's trying to get Frasier back on TV. Like that's the secret gambit.
You could easily do like a Cam Winston and BB spin-off, the most evil sitcom characters.
Yeah. There
Cam.
you go.
like like the BB's like weird troupe that she has in that one episode that she introduces to Frasier. They're all meant to have these amazing talents. And she's like, have you ever seen such talents? And then she turns away and goes, God, they're pathetic. Like a show about just her and her clients.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful. It'd be brilliant. Man. Well, does that about cover what we wanted to say about Frasier Shippuden, new Frasier?
I think so, yeah. I think a pleasant surprise for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hearty recommendation. And I thank you for indulging me and joining me on these truly bizarre, Kelsey Grammer heavy Christmas adventures. And I'm glad to have a creative collaborator such as yourself to help me put these together. And I wish you a happy holiday, Martin. All jokes aside.
I wish you a happy holiday too. All Kelsey Grammer movies aside.
Do 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 do. And Eddie's dancing like Snoopy, and we get played off.
Oh, night divine.
Perfect.
Now, who wants pancakes?